Welcome to the Alcohol Addiction Podcast. My name is Lee Davey. I am not an alcoholic. I refuse to be anonymous. I'm someone who doesn't drink alcohol, and I spend every waking moment helping other people do the same. This is episode 132, the Unlived Life. But before I get to the Unlived Life, I want to talk about something that's beating away at my heart right now. The Strive Community Forum. It's a place of love. It's a place of freedom. It's a place where the nonconformists can come and be different, okay? It's a place where we all feel safe. It's a place where we can share our vulnerability. But right now, at this moment, there's a lot of pain in the Strive Community Forum, a lot of pain. A lot of members seem to be having the responsibility of taking care of their parents as their parents are moving into the twilight of their lives, or are not yet in their twilight, but are suffering from a wide variety of different ailments. There's a lot of death been happening with parents of people, and a lot of emotional and physical time taken up caring for other people. And of course, one of the symptoms of being physically and mentally exhausted, because you have to go and look after and care for other people, and you're constantly worrying about the health and well-being of those that you love, is that you don't take care of yourself. You don't post on Strive. You don't do your homework in the Truth About Alcohol Life Changing Experience. You don't go for that run. You don't meditate. You don't eat well. You don't stretch. You don't take 5 minutes for yourself. It's 100 miles an hour, and all you're doing all the time is just trying to survive, right? Trying to survive, like just feed the kids, get them off to school, just get your job done to the best of your ability, and then get over to your parents' house or their care home or whatever to take care of them, to look after them. I'm not in that spot. I've never been in that spot. I have no idea how it feels. But I can imagine it feels utterly exhausting. There are a couple of things that I just wanted to talk about before I moved on to the Unlived Life. Picture yourself in your 70s or your 80s struggling with your health, and your children are taking care of you. What state would you want them to be in? Would you want them to be someone who doesn't drink alcohol, someone who's present, someone who's with it, someone who's full of energy, someone who's strong, someone who's fit, someone who's mentally and physically capable to take on the world? So when you look at them, you don't feel like you're that much of a burden, you know? You're just kind of like, wow, there's my kid, really strong, taking care of me, right? And how would you feel if you knew that they were drinking as a direct result of the fact that they had to take care of you? You wouldn't want that, right? There's no way that you would want that. There's no way you would want to put that burden on your children. And it's the same with our parents, and it's the same with anybody else that we take care of. They wouldn't want to be a burden to us, and they certainly wouldn't want their situation to manifest itself in us taking a drug, right? They wouldn't want that. And they would want you to be physically at the peak of your performance and mentally at the peak of your performance, so you could handle looking after your husband, your wife, or your kids, or your job, and ultimately those that rely on you. So what I'm saying here is the old cliche of the airplane: always put your oxygen mask on before you put somebody else's oxygen mask on. If you don't look after number one, okay, if you don't look after number one, then how are you going to be physically and mentally capable of holding your shit together? How can you care for those who need you most? That's your children, that's your significant other, it's your people who rely on you in your career, and of course the people that you're caring for who haven't got long left in this world. You can't do it, can you? You'll be running on empty. You'll be providing them with 50% of your potential output at a time when they really need 100%. And that might sound harsh, but it's the truth reality of the stuff, right? You don't want someone walking into you when you're on your deathbed and they themselves look like they're on their deathbed because they're looking after you, okay? So we have to put it as number one. We have to post on Strive. Okay, we have to share on Strive. We have to reach out and ask for help. We have to talk about it. We have to unburden ourselves. And here's the thing with checking in. I always go on to people that say you should check in daily on Strive. Okay, there is one person on Strive in particular, well, a couple actually, who will come on Strive and they'll just say, night, night, everybody. That's it. Or they'll come on Strive every day and say, good morning, everybody. That's it. But it's there every single day like clockwork. And there are other people who don't use Strive so much because they're too busy. Now, what will happen? Let's call the first person Mildred and we'll call the second person Greg. Both of them are now going to be faced with make-believe, catastrophic incidences in their life. They're both going to lose their parents. My money is on Mildred using the Strive community forum and using the movement, using those friendships and those bonds and that community that she's created. She's going to use them to help her get through that situation and continue to be someone who doesn't drink alcohol. And George, who doesn't use the Strive community forum that much, he is more likely to drink alcohol as a way to get through his difficult time. Why? Because Mildred has made it a habit of checking in daily on Strive, of using that particular tool. So it's an ingrained habit. So when the shit hits the fan, she's already built up the momentum of using a habit. Therefore, she is going to use that tool. George, however, doesn't use Strive that often. He hasn't built up that habit muscle. So when he now drinks alcohol because he's in a really terrible situation, or he hasn't drunk yet, but he's white knuckling it because he really is struggling to resist the drink because he's going through a bad time, he is more likely not to post on Strive because he'll feel shame and guilt because he hasn't built that routine. So take care of yourself. Post on Strive on a regular basis. It is a tool. And yes, we do need to change our psychology around alcohol. Yes, we do need to stop thinking it's normal and pleasurable and to start thinking that it's an invisible, violent, dominant belief system. The psychology is super important. The beliefs, the culture, all that kind of stuff is really super important. But so is developing the tools in order for you to get out of some of these sticky spots if the philosophy isn't sticking. And one of these great tools is the Strive Community Forum. And it doesn't take long to whip out your phone and do a message while you're going to the toilet for some 5 minutes of quiet time. If you don't know what to write, write headline, I don't know what to write, and then write in a comment, I don't know what to write, having a tough time right now. Boom, that is it. The rest of it will take care of itself, okay? Okay, on to the Unlived Life, episode 132. You're going to get one every day this week, leading up to the big webinar weekend we've got, where I'm going to be teaching you all about resistance, what it is, what it looks like, how it shows up in your life, and how we're going to smash it to pieces and why it's so important, okay? So, the Unlived Life. Back before I was someone who didn't drink alcohol, I was a bit of a zombie, right? I had the job, I had the wife, I had the kid, I had the house, I had the friends, I had the life. And because of that, I was a bit of a zombie. I'd wake up in the morning, I would go through the same old routine, you know, kiss a few foreheads on, you know, tell the people I loved them about waking them up, get dressed, kick the cat, drive on autopilot to my place of work, dreading going there because people hated me and I hated being there. And then just really sitting in a real shitty office, can't wait to get home. Because my life at the time, especially my job, was so miserable and disheartening, I would stop off on the pub on the way home because I thought there was intense value in that. I thought it brought me camaraderie and it eased the kind of like mundaneness of life, I guess. And then I would drink home after, I'd drive home after having 3 drinks, drunk, and then I have a few more, go in, ignore the family, eat some real terrible food, probably takeaway, sit down, watch some telly, or play some poker, finish the night off with some whiskey, wake up, do the same thing again. Zombie. But in the back of my mind, even though I'm a zombie, I still have aspirations to be something better in my life. I wanted to be the CEO of the railway that I was working in. Why? I wanted to be a multi-millionaire. Why did I want to be a multi-millionaire? Well, back then, I wanted to buy all the Hugo Boss clothes and and all the other fancy names you wanted. I wanted Bang & Olufsen stereos. I wanted a top-of-the-range car. I wanted all the different Bose super subsystem televisions hanging on my wall, right? I wanted all of those things. Secretly, at the back of my mind, I wanted to travel the world. I wanted to see all these different places. I certainly wanted to own my own business if I wasn't going to be the CEO of the railway. Why? Going back to money again. I was a very materialistic, ego-driven guy. Being like, you know, I didn't want to keep up with the Joneses. I wanted to be the Joneses, okay? I also wanted to be world-class communicator. I wanted to be the best at everything that I did. I wanted to be a public speaker. I did want to write a book back there in my head. I wanted to tell my own story. I wanted to be a teacher because I really enjoyed that. I wanted to be the best dad in the world. I wanted to be the best human being in the world. I wanted to be the best husband in the world. And then come 2009, I want to be someone who doesn't drink alcohol, right? Except that's not what my life was like. My life was, like I said, it was like a zombie. I was waking up in the morning doing the things that I thought that I had to do. Sleeping with people that I thought that I had to sleep with. Working in a job that I thought that I had to work in a job with. Drinking alcohol because I thought that I had to drink alcohol. You know, back then, the idea of getting out of a marriage, which was not providing me with any fulfillment, was a non-starter. Why? Resistance. Changing my job. I'd been in for 19 years at that time, was not a starter. Why? Resistance. Stopping drinking alcohol at that time was a non-starter. Why? Resistance. Traveling around the world and actually earning some money to be a multi-millionaire was out of the question. Why? Resistance. I could go on and on and on and on and on. Every single one of us lives two lives, okay? We live a life as a zombie, a life that fits into societal conditioning, a life full of rules, full of beliefs, full of convictions, full of culture that we've adopted as a very, very young child. And we now believe I've actually manacled us and chained us to this life we don't really want, right? We've got that life. We've got we have got the shitty life. And then we've got this other life, this unlived life, the life that we dream of when we go to bed, the life what we see on television, the life we see in the movies, the life that goes in our mind when we look at our partner drinking alcohol on the settee with a big beer belly burping, not really bothering to communicate or spend any time with the kids or anything. And we look at them and then we think of a different life, the unlived life. Two lives, the shitty life and the unlived life. And do you know what is standing in our way of getting from one to the other? A Clash of Titan-esque monolithic statue called resistance. And until you break that resistance down, until you chip away at that statue and get it out of the way so you can move from the shitty life to this unlived life, you will never, ever, ever, ever get there. The unlived life will continue to be unlived. You will be on your deathbed with someone taking care of you, and they will be asking you, have you had a good life? And you'll be turning around and saying, no, son, or no, daughter, I haven't. I never did this. I never did that. I never did this. And all those reasons, the top 5 regrets of the dying, I think it was, I can't remember the author, will be because resistance prevented them. Resistance won. Join me 1:00 a.m. British summertime, Friday, June 22nd, for our special webinar on resistance. We start at 1 a.m. and then every 4 hours after that, a pre-recorded webinar will play all weekend. Ultimately, the purpose of the webinar is to show you the power of the lessons that we undergo in the Truth About Alcohol life-changing experience, because we have 10 positions up for grabs this month, okay? Only 10. So get on that webinar as early as you can, because first 10, first come, first served, might do a few bonuses, Might give away a few freebies. Let's see what happens when we get to the webinar. I'll have a think about that for a week. But that is the place where you will learn more and more and more about resistance. You'll love it. It's going to be a very, very interesting webinar. The resistance is a fascinating topic, and it is the number one reason why people find it so difficult to become people who don't drink alcohol. I am Lee Davey. I'm not an alcoholic. I refuse to be anonymous. I am someone who doesn't drink alcohol, and I spend every waking moment, including this one, helping other people do the same. See you on Friday.